Nowadays, many people feel like their lives are closing in on them, like they're stuck in situations they can't escape. In their day to day world, it often feels impossible to solve their problems, and in many cases, that feeling isn't wrong. Most people only see and experience what's directly around them: their job, their family, their neighborhood. Their perspective is limited to these small, immediate environments, and outside of them, they mostly just watch rather than participate. But as people start to become even slightly aware of bigger forces, larger ambitions, wider threats beyond their everyday life, they don't feel more free. They feel even more trapped. This feeling doesn't come out of nowhere. It's rooted in massive, impersonal changes happening across society as a whole. History isn't just something out there, it directly shapes individual lives. When a society industrializes, a farmer might be forced to become a factory worker. When social classes shift, someone gains a job while someone else loses one. When the economy rises or falls, people either find opportunity or face financial collapse. And when wars happen, ordinary lives are completely transformed. Someone working a regular job is suddenly thrown into combat. Families are separated, and children grow up without parents. In the end, you can't fully understand a person's life without understanding the society they live in. And you can't understand society without looking at the lives of individuals within it. But most people don't see their struggles as part of something bigger. They don't usually connect their personal problems to larger historical changes or the way society is structured. Even the good things in their lives, they rarely trace those back to shifts in the economy, culture, or institutions around them. Because of this, people often miss the deeper connection between their own life and the course of history. And when you can't see that connection, you also can't fully understand who you're becoming or the role you might play in shaping the world around you. In other words, most people lack the mindset needed to see how individual lives and society are constantly influencing each other. And without that awareness, it becomes almost impossible to deal with personal struggles in a way that actually addresses the larger forces causing them. And honestly, it's not surprising. When in history have so many people been exposed so quickly to such massive, world shaking changes? For a long time, Americans were somewhat shielded from the kinds of extreme disruptions that people in other parts of the world experienced. But that distance is fading. What once felt far away is now part of a shared global reality. Today, the history that shapes your life isn't just national, it's global. In a single generation, entire populations have been transformed. Societies that were once traditional and slow moving have been pushed rapidly into modern, complex, and often unstable systems. Colonies gain independence, only to face new, less visible forms of control. Revolutions break out, and new forms of power take hold of people's everyday lives. Some governments become highly controlled and authoritarian. Some collapse while others grow even stronger. Capitalism, once seen as the dominant path forward, is revealed to be just one way of organizing society. And democracy, once filled with promise, is actually experienced by only a small portion of the world. Across developing regions, old ways of life are falling apart, replaced by rising expectations and growing demands for change. Meanwhile, in more developed societies, systems of power and control become larger, more organized, and more bureaucratic, extending deeper into everyday life. And hanging over all of this is the constant possibility of global conflict, as the world's most powerful nations prepare for wars that could affect all of humanity. Right now, the pace of change in the world is moving faster than people can keep up with. The values and ways of thinking that once gave life meaning are starting to break down. But what replaces them isn't clear. The future feels uncertain, almost frozen, where people aren't sure what to believe anymore. So it's no surprise that many people feel overwhelmed. They're suddenly facing a much larger, more complex world, but don't feel equipped to understand it, let alone navigate it. They struggle to see what this moment in history actually means for their own lives. And because of that, many retreat inward. They try to protect themselves by focusing only on their private lives, disconnecting from the bigger picture. But in doing so, they often lose a sense of direction and start to feel even more trapped. The problem isn't just a lack of information. In fact, there's almost too much of it. People are flooded with facts, news, and data, but don't know how to make sense of it all. And it's not just about thinking more logically either. Even when people try to reason through things, it can feel exhausting and lead nowhere. What's really missing is something deeper, a way of thinking that helps connect everything together, a way to take all this information, all these experiences, and clearly understand what's happening in the world and what it means for your own life. That way of thinking is what famous sociologist C. Wright Mills calls the sociological imagination. The sociological imagination is what allows someone to connect their personal life to the bigger picture of history and society. It helps you understand how larger forces, like culture, the economy, and social structures, shape both your inner thoughts and the direction your life takes. It also reveals something important. People don't always fully understand their own place in society. In the middle of everyday life, it's easy to misinterpret your situation or see it in a limited way. But when you step back and look at the broader structure of society, things start to make more sense. You begin to see how different kinds of people are shaped by the systems they live in. And through that shift in perspective, something changes. What once felt like vague personal anxiety becomes a clear, identifiable problem, and what once seemed like distant public issues suddenly feels relevant, something you're connected to and involved in. The first major takeaway from this way of thinking, and from sociology as a whole, is this. You can't fully understand your own life unless you understand the time and society you're living in. To really grasp your own situation, your opportunities, your struggles, you have to recognize how they compare to others in similar circumstances. Your life isn't isolated, it's part of a much larger pattern, and that realization can feel overwhelming, but also powerful, because it reveals something important about human nature. Its limits are much wider than we often think. People are capable of incredible effort and achievement, but also of cruelty, suffering, and destruction. Over time, we've come to see just how broad those possibilities really are. At the same time, every person lives within a specific society and a specific moment in history. Each of us is living out our own life story, but that story is always shaped by the historical forces around us. And even though it might feel like we're just small individuals, each of us still plays a role, however small, in shaping the society we live in, just as that society is constantly shaping us in return. The sociological imagination allows us to understand both history and individual lives, and more importantly, how the two are connected within society. That's its purpose. That's its promise. And recognizing that connection is what separates great thinkers from the rest. It's a quality shared by many of the most influential social thinkers, people who, in different ways, tried to understand how society shapes human life. From broad, system-level thinkers to more detailed and critical observers, they all relied on the same ability to connect personal experience to larger social forces. It's what made their work powerful. It's what gave them deeper insight into how the world actually works. And even today, this way of thinking remains at the core of the best attempts to understand people and society. No study of society is truly complete unless it comes back to three things: individual lives, history, and the connection between the two. No matter what specific topic a thinker is studying, whether it's something small and focused or broad and complex, the best sociologists always return to this core idea. They understand that to fully make sense of society, you have to connect personal experience to larger historical forces. And the thinkers who really grasp this, the ones who see the full potential of their work, all tend to ask the same kinds of questions. The first question is, what does this society actually look like as a whole? What are its main parts, and how do they connect and work together? How is it different from other types of societies? And within it, what role does any single feature play? Does it help keep the system stable? or does it contribute to change? The second question is, where does this society fit in the course of human history? How is it changing, and what forces are driving that change? What role does it play in the broader development of humanity? And when we look at any specific part of society, how is it shaped by the time period it exists in, and how does it, in turn, shape that period? So we also have to ask, what defines this moment in history? What makes it different from other eras? And how do people in this time actually create and shape history? The third question is, what kinds of people are most common in this society right now? And what kinds are emerging? How are individuals being shaped? In what ways are they encouraged, limited, freed, or controlled? How does this society influence the way people think, behave, and see the world? And when we look at people in this time, what does their behavior reveal about human nature? Ultimately, we have to ask, how does every part of this society shape what it means to be human in this particular moment? Whether you're looking at something massive, like a global superpower, or something small, like a family, a belief system, or even a cultural trend, these are the kinds of questions the best social thinkers always ask. These questions are the foundation of great sociology. And any mind that truly understands the sociological imagination naturally starts thinking this way. Because at its core, the sociological imagination is the ability to shift perspectives, to move from politics to psychology, from one family's experience to an entire nation's economy, from religion to the military, from industries to culture and art. It's the ability to connect the biggest, most distant changes in society to the most personal and intimate parts of individual life, and to see how they influence each other. And behind all of this is a deeper goal: to understand what a person's life really means within the society they live in, and within the moment in history they're a part of. In short, the sociological imagination is how people begin to understand both the world around them and themselves within it. It helps you see your life as part of a much bigger intersection, where your personal story meets history and society. Because of this, many people today start to see themselves differently. They may feel like outsiders, sometimes even strangers, because they begin to realize how much their lives are shaped by forces beyond their control. This awareness comes from recognizing two things: how relative social life really is, and how powerful history can be in shaping who we become. And out of all the ways to develop that awareness, the sociological imagination is one of the most powerful. When people begin to think this way, it can feel like waking up in a place they thought they already understood, but suddenly seeing it clearly for the first time. They start to connect the dots. They feel like they can finally make sense of things, seeing patterns, forming clearer perspectives, understanding how everything fits together. Choices they once thought made perfect sense now seem limited or based on a narrow view of the world. At the same time, something else happens. Their sense of curiosity comes back to life. They begin to think differently. Their values start to shift. And through that shift in awareness, they come to understand the deeper cultural meaning of studying society itself. Before ending off this video, I'd like to credit the source used for this video, which was the book The Sociological Imagination by C. Wright Mills. This video only scratches the surface, with the book going much deeper into how your life connects to society and how to actually see the bigger picture clearly. If you're interested, I've linked it below, and if nothing else, it's a perspective that, once you have it, tends to stay with you. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching.